Hello everyone, today I'll be talking about Sanaki, the second hero who gets a legendary weapon upgrade in the 2.1 update today. This particular upgrade not only completely uplifts what used to be her extremely terrible weapon, but also gives her a unique playstyle that I think is rather welcoming. Now, she will get to be the supernova hurling lolly she was always meant to be, destroying the Planet of the Apes and turning it into a 1-minute movie. So, where to begin? First, let's talk about the absolute necessity to get that weapon upgraded. So, this weapon, built during the start of the game, the Cymbeline was hilariously underpowered as legendary weapons go. You provide a +4 attack buff to adjacent allies, and only if you initiate the battle. Even before Light Breath Plus was a thing, that weapon was already terrible. It might have been more tolerable if you could pass out +4 attack in like 2 spaces or something. But it also exposes Sanaki to a fight that she might not want to get herself into. But case in point, it was a terrible weapon. It was practically about as good as a 14 might beat stick. But now, thanks to some technological breakthrough, Cymbeline is a lot more useful than it is in its previous form. Also, am I pronouncing it properly? Cymbeline, whatever. It's like with Sanaki. People are like, oh, you're not pronouncing it right. I don't know, I'm just pronouncing it like Sanada Yukimura. Whatever. Anyway, let's go back to the topic at hand. So anyway, it's a lot more useful than its previous form, and it now gives you an attack res bond effect. A +5 attack and res when adjacent to an ally, when you're near a flying unit. 2 spaces to be precise. And the far more practical drive attack 2, which gives +3 attack to any allies in a 2-tile radius. Now, I've always loved drive skills. They're far more useful than regular buffs because they will not be affected by Panic Ploy, which could turn against you, and they stack very, very well. You can't stack field buffs like Hone or Tactics since only the strongest one will apply, but with invisible buffs such as Drive and Spurs, you can stack as high as you want and no one can do anything about it. Now, we will talk about the new playstyles for Sanaki. This, I think, is particularly important because much of her weapon hinges on it. So as you can imagine, with Sanaki, you want to have at least one Flier riding with her at all times. This Flier should preferably be a tanky one of a different color. Green is really good to cover her weak spots, but blue works just fine, allowing Sanaki to back up her ally instead. Offensive Flyers of these colors isn't too bad either, since Sanaki's attack bonus allows them to strike out within 2 spaces. Now, these Flyers should carry either drag back or hit and run if applicable, which allows these Flyers to return to Sanaki after attacking and enable her weapon's attack res bond again. Drag back also has the added bonus of dragging an enemy right into Sanaki's range, allow her to toss a supernova over their head, balding them, forever making fun of her forehead. This unit could also carry either reposition, drawback, or dance, because for all intents and purposes, this Flyer is now nothing but a hover chair for Sanaki to do her thing, which is to be a supreme leader who buffs her allies while tossing out supernovas without her ever actually having to move on her own. Since she needs to take advantage of her attack res bond, you can also use guidance on these Flyers to achieve this effect. That way the Flyer can attack someone and then Sanaki can just, teleport right next to them. Of course, this wouldn't be a complete guide if I don't list a couple Flyers, so here's a couple from the green and blue collection that I think works well with Sanaki. For green Flyers, there's Bulbasaurus Rex Insulated, also known as regular Camilla. So despite her being underestimated, Bulbasaurus Rex is a very well-rounded unit that also has some very large and insulated boobs that can absorb magic attacks, which allows her to tank the likes of Little Hands Reinhardt, who could put a decent dent on Sanaki despite her high resistance. Bulbasaurus Rex is actually surprisingly fast too, despite being top heavy. With a plus speed boon, she can avoid many double attacks and even dish out some of her own. Her regular defense is no slouch either, allowing her to tank various spear units who might try to attack Sanaki. Because she's literally a well-rounded character, besides her boobs and all that, she uses things like Melon Smasher, or Christmas presents to good effect. Fury and Distant Counter also works very well on her. I should really do a video on her soon because she's actually an amazing character. But anyway, yeah, she's a great partner for Sanaki. Second is Bulbasaurus Rex Plated, Spring Camilla. Much like regular Camilla, Bulbasaurus Rex Plated also carries an additional bonus for having plated boobs. Her defense is really tough for a flyer, and equipped with a Iod's Shield, she becomes a wonderful physical tank. Combined with her Blade Tome, Tactics will boost her attacks to some astronomical heights, allowing Camilla and Sanaki to basically become double dragons and completely ruinate everyone they fight. Her resistance is a bit low though, but enough to tank the likes of Reinhardt. Not to mention Sanaki could also tank magic for her if need be, so this is another powerful combination you should consider. Then last but not least, we have of course Flier. Now, I haven't done the New Year's video yet due to some time restraints. I'm sure most of you understand why a flying dancer is such a wonderful pain in the ass though. And now, thanks to her flyer status, she can serve Empress Forehead, giving her another Supernova to toss at an enemy. As a fighter, she's okay, but for the most part she's better served as the ultimate hover chair for Sanaki. Now as for blue flyers, Cordelia is amazing. With a Flyer Sweep lance, she can strike down an enemy straight up or drag them back for Sanaki to personally execute. Since she's so fast, she is also not easily taken down unless the enemy hits hard enough to one-shot her. Just watch out for those brave users and you should be alright. All in all, she's a solid choice, a paragon of perfection indeed. Second, you have Tana, who serves a similar role as Cordelia, with an additional bonus of a legendary weapon that helps her tank physical melee attacks better. She's another solid choice to work with Sanaki. Finally, we have Tittysaurus Rex, Summercorn. She works well. Just like her big sister Bulbasaurus Rex, Blade Tome tactics will cause her to become a monster in the field. Her main weakness though is that she's kinda frail due to not having a lot of HP, so she needs to watch out for attacks that might one-shot her. Otherwise though, her fast speed is quite a boon and allows her to double all sorts of enemies. I could go on forever with all the flyers in the games, like Baruka or Minerva and such, but you get the general idea. So that's it, now that I've gone off and talked about everyone else's builds, let's go back to Sanaki. So I've actually made two builds for her because she has some interesting stats that allows her to work a little differently depending on her IVs. So the first one is a build I called the Double Bonded Tyrant. So the main idea for that build is to stack yet another bond skill, in this case Attack Defense Bond, to bring her attack to an overwhelming 61, or Nintendo 64 if you have an attack IV. Now you might ask, why? Why Attack Defend Bond and that Defense IV? What the fool? Well, how should I start with this? You know how there's a lot of my YouTuber peers who showcases a Baruka or at some point or another? Well, the way they usually show it is like this. Ooh, my Baruka, so tough! Look, physical attack hit her! Then ding ding ding, it finishes all off with Ignis. My dick is big now! Well, there is nothing actually inherently wrong with playing to your character's strength. There's also such a thing called excess. So I would much rather take a couple single-digit number damage from enemy physical attacks, while still shrugging off magic attacks like they're nothing. This is how I intend to build my Baruka. Well, whenever I get the chance to anyway, thanks to feather costs. The principle is the same with Sanaki. She already has chunks and chunks of resistance, and while her defense sits at a mere 17, which is dangerously low, some sites like Game Press would be like, oh yeah, let's throw that defense away, it's not like she's gonna tank physical attacks anyway. Yeah, okay pal, look, you lose 4 defense from this. This makes her 13. Not only is that terribly bad luck, but now anything ranging from a wet fart would take her down. And with dragons the way they are now, the list of attacks you can actually take is suddenly a lot lower. Don't even count on like weapon triangle advantage to save you either. That's for people with real stats. On the other hand, if you chose plus defense IV, you can actually tank an interesting amount of attacks with 25 defense, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, since her speed is kinda low, you'll need to supplement it with something like a deflect missile seal against someone with a particularly aggressive build, such as Cordelia. So here's one where Sanaki defends against her Fire Sweep build. You can see that, and barely, but she did it. And here's one where Sanaki defends against her Brave Bolt build, and then promptly turns around and rips her face off. See, the main thing with using bond skills is that your character doesn't really have a lot of freedom of movement. Her tome gives her 2 spaces, but if you really want to stack bonds, you'll have to stick with someone. And that's going to be times where you have to take a hit, but for 61 attacks, I think I will do it. Not to mention, since you stick with a Flier a lot of times, if you marry them, you're looking at 27 defense, which is actually pretty respectable. And before I forget, I would rather minus speed with this build because her speed is low as it is. And there's another build that actually uses her speed though, but I'll talk about that after this. The other Banes are kinda dangerous, but minus HP is still good, and if push comes to shove, minus res is bearable. Meanwhile, for her B skills, Quick Riposta will serve slow units like her just fine. She tanks an attack, and, well, whoever attacks her dies! If you want to specialize though, and also free up your seal slot for whatever reason, take a Bowbreaker, though keep in mind that it won't protect you against brave bows. Daggers are kinda scary, but these days no one really uses Kagero anymore, and I've only seen like a meager amount of like New York Takumi or some other ninjas. The other options, such as Guard, is alright, though you will want to have infantry pulse support if you want to kill someone on a counterattack. As for C skills, you can take Attack Tactics. If you have a serious makes team, which you probably will, because you're running a Flier ally, you'll get to provide +9 attack to all your allies within range. That's no laughing matter, really. Another drive attack also is pretty deadly, and you can also try to round it out with a drive speed, which allows you to give out +3 attack and speed at the same time. Alternatively though, you can also run things like Res Ploy to bring your enemies to their knees, or Attack Ploy to soften their attacks for you and your Flyers to tank. Now I like Harsh Command on her as it is, because lately thanks to things like Ploys, Smokes, Healers, Ninjas, and people like Guntra running around, debuffs is going to be a thing. With this, you can turn that against them, devastating the enemy. Glimmer is the premier special now for characters who have ridiculously high attacks, which is exactly what Sanaki is. Just remember though, treat this Sanaki as a base of operations kind of thing, generally as a ruler, as she doesn't really have to fight, but when push comes to shove, this build allows her to tank an enemy attack and then repay them with death. But your primary concern is to make sure you can pass on your stats or debuff enemies. This build is entirely founded on teamwork. Now, a second build I have in mind is even more exotic, called the Furious Forehead. Now, instead of doing a double bond, this time she'll be using Fury to boost her stats. This is a build specifically catered to plus speed Sanaki, because her super boon actually brings her to a decent 30 speed. With Fury, you're looking at 33, which is actually somewhat safe. She'll still be sticking with a Flier though to get that attack res bond, but since she now gets the bonus of, within 2 spaces, she doesn't have to stick as close to her guards as her Tyrant form. This freedom of movement is important, because if you want to proc her speed ploy, which is key to this build, bringing her to a dreaded 38 speed, you should have no problem doing this, because there aren't really many units out there with 37 resistance. Now, after you hit 38 speed, you can actually double a decent variety of things. But the real key to this thing is that she won't get doubled easily. And if she takes a hit that brings her down to 50% health, well, she becomes an unbelievable monster with a brash attack desperation combo. Getting hit twice by a 59 attack Twin Sun Supernova without buffs is no laughing matter. Not many people will survive such an ordeal, especially if they're monkeys. Once Glimmer gets into the mix, then you better pick a god and pray. Alternatively, you can also run plus speed seals. That brings her to a comfortable 41 speed, which still doubles a large variety of everything outside of a few specific speed demons. It's a safer option without all the 50% health nonsense, but if you want to crush everyone's skull to death, including the speed demons, then I say go with the brash assault version. Finally, I recommend minus HP as her bane. You want to keep health as low as possible so you can hit 50% health easier. With the help of Fury, you should have no trouble getting that after taking a hit. This is a build meant to turn Sanaki into a deranged serial killer, while still providing support with a plus 3 attack, drive attack, and speed ploy. I recommend the use of harsh command still. Just be careful of enemies though who also uses harsh command, because if you mess things up, you'll be the one who gets double, you and your team. So pay very close attention to what the enemy uses. Anyway, that's pretty much it for my little thing of Sanaki. I don't actually have any 5-star versions of hers because, well, she shows up in like 1 or 2 banners. But, maybe later I will invest a little bit on her and do a showcase video. We'll see how things develop as the anniversary comes. Anyway, I thank you all for watching. Until next time.